There might be a kid that's running in the school with a gun.
They announced this is not a drill.
Shots fired at Taft High School.
They're yelling, get down, get down.
The chaos started going whenever all the phone calls started being made.
I was just hoping they wouldn't come into the library. Hoping I'd come out okay.
Officer-involved shooting in southwest Bakersfield that started in the marketplace at Chase Bank.
A deadly shootout punctuates the end of a high-speed chase in the desert of eastern Kern County.
It's a very active scene out here in Oildale. We're actually standing on Woodrow Avenue. As you can see, it's completely blocked off right now.
A teenage male was shot in the head while he was driving west on Buena Vista Boulevard here in Lamont.
And we want to go again to that aerial look of that fire so we can show you the extensive acreage that it has burned.
I was sitting there and I was wondering why he did it. And then he just had that look like I didn't care who it was.
Tammy, as investigators continue to piece together the suspected gunman's motive, we're getting a look at some of the tweets that foreshadowed the tragedy at Taft High School. Students at Taft High School took to Twitter last month to tweet their worries about 16-year-old Brian Oliver. A girl who identifies herself as Allie Who wrote, "If Brian Oliver shoots up the school, I swear to God, I have like 4 classes with him." As students returned to school today to pick up their belongings, some had seen the tweets online.
I feel unsafe about it. Like I don't like it at all.
It makes it kind of uneasy, like it's kind of like unsettling because like what can you really do?
The disturbing tweets are from December 15th, almost a month before students say Oliver walked into a classroom and opened fire. Another student on Twitter wrote, "He made a hit list. Why is he still allowed in school? And he always talks about murder like he's obsessed with it." The girl goes on to say, "Yeah, he told Bo, the victim of the shooting, that he watched 5 serial killer movies and thought of Bo the whole time. Creepy." We wanted to know if the school monitors social media. Did they know about these tweets? But the district wasn't talking today.
They check all of our Twitters, they check our Facebooks, they check everything we do. And if you get caught doing something, you get called up to the office.
You can't hide anything from this school.
Who checks it?
The vice principal.
The vice principal and the supervisors, they go through it.
Students told us Oliver was caught last year with a hit list and suspended for a few days. Investigators could not confirm the list.
Yeah, I heard about it like when I moved here. But like other than that, I didn't think it was real, you know? I thought it was just a kid, you know, messing around.
I honestly don't think that someone who chooses to openly voice that they want to cause other students ill will should not be allowed to be readmitted to the school.
Sierra Curry told us she was on the hit list and says the shooting was especially hard on her.
When you heard it was Brian Oliver, what did you think then?
He was coming to get me. I was still on his list. That I was the next one.
The woman was not in a crosswalk. This is the 23rd pedestrian killed in Kern County this year.
2 more pedestrians were killed over the weekend in Kern County, bringing the total now to 25 deaths.
The 26th pedestrian killed in Kern County so far this year.
To 27.
This is the 28th.
This is now the 29th pedestrian.
This is the 32nd pedestrian killed.
34th. 36 pedestrian fatalities.
Take a drive through downtown Bakersfield.
It's like in the middle of the street.
And chances are you'll encounter something like this. A bicyclist veering suddenly into your lane. A mom pushing a baby and stroller across the street far from any crosswalk. Or a woman starting to walk diagonal against the light in the middle of the intersection. These are the distracted, disorderly streets of our county, and they have turned downright deadly for people walking or riding a bike. CHP officer Robert Rodriguez.
Oh, I know better. I should have probably crossed the street at the crosswalk, but this was more convenient for me. So a lot of it just has to do with convenience. They don't want to walk, you know, maybe a block or 2 down the street.
Rodriguez took us on a ride to Chester Avenue in Oildale.
See that guy? We got a young kid crossing the street here outside of a crosswalk.
An area he says has seen more than its fair share of pedestrian injuries and deaths this year.
It's a huge problem, and we just don't have the manpower to sit there and just focus on one violation.
Not yet, anyway. But Rodriguez says they have grant funding in hand to begin special enforcement stings like this one with the BPD, where they ticket pedestrians and drivers violating the law.
Distracted while they're driving or just not paying attention. And then you've got pedestrians that are also distracted. Everyone's distracted while they're out on the roadway when they should be paying attention.
The CHP says that's exactly what happened here last Tuesday. 16-year-old Kararin Orellana was crossing Niles from Orange Drive when she was struck and killed by a Honda sedan. Officers say she was wearing headphones and dark clothing, and she was not in a crosswalk. The driver who struck Orellana will not face charges.
I loved her. I loved her with my heart. For me, it was the most beautiful thing God could have given me.
Statistically, Nile Street is among the most dangerous in the city. 4 pedestrians died along this 2.5-mile stretch so far this year. This is Nile Street at night where Kararin Orellana died, an area sometimes so dark it's hard to see even a few feet away. Combine that with fast-moving traffic, and critics say this is a particularly dangerous roadway. But it's not just Niles. We plotted all of this year's pedestrian fatalities on a Google map. A pattern immediately jumped out at us. In the greater Bakersfield area, not a single pedestrian was hit and killed west of Highway 99. East Bakersfield, it seems, is a particularly dangerous place to bike or walk.
Probably because of the economics.
Transportation consultant Zach Griffin thinks he knows why. More people on the east side simply can't afford to drive.
The guy who's making $100,000 a year can go to Trader Joe's easily in his SUV that he has the money to pay for if he doesn't feel comfortable riding his bike there. He can afford to go to the gym and spend $200. Most of these people can't afford to do that.
Griffin brought us to Brundage Lane and Chester to show us why that intersection is so dangerous as well. We didn't have long to wait.
Where's he going?
Seconds into our interview, and we found this older man gingerly making his way across 40-mile-per-hour traffic outside of a crosswalk.
Tonight, 17th Kiyoshi Tomono takes a look at infrastructure. He examines what role the placement of crosswalks, bus stops, and street lighting may play in this deadly trend.
But is there something more?
If it was me, I'd make sure I look.
We caught up with Robert Gutierrez as he waited for a GET bus. He suggests Kern is not a bike or walk-friendly county. He says lighting and badly placed bus stops on the east side are a big part of the problem. We took those complaints to County Roads Director Craig Pope.
We've been trying to kick that around in-house, and we're coming up with lack of understanding by the public.
And what about people darting across traffic to catch the bus?
As a matter of fact, they just went through a program where they re-established where all their bus stops were, and they did it on, I think, more of an efficiency type of thing than a safety.
Pope says County Roads was not consulted. Spokeswoman Gina Hayden told us Kern Golden Empire Transit does independently study traffic flow and safety, and she stressed people need to plan time for their trips and make sure they're not darting across traffic to catch a bus. So what do you think? Check out our stories on KurtonGoldenEmpire.com, where we posted an interactive map of the pedestrian fatalities this year. Then head over to our Facebook page, where other users are actively engaged in a conversation about what can be done to fix the problem.
Kern County, for the third time in a month, we have asked, and you have responded in a big way to our latest fundraiser. For this one, county firefighters are collecting money all day today for the families of those firefighters killed in Prescott, Arizona. Now, Rochelle.
Well, Jim, since 5 o'clock this morning, these firefighters have been out here collecting money, and so far, they have collected nearly $50,000. A huge success. The fundraiser raised $12,000.
More than $30,000 raised to help veterans returning home from war.
Today's barbecue brought in more than $25,000 for the Alliance, thanks to all of you.
And thank you to your generosity. The Sheriff's Activity League now has $8,100 more for its programs throughout Kern County.
And all 24 animals, 6 cats and 18 dogs were adopted yesterday. As of this morning, more than $13,500 was donated.
Heroes and Helmets for Hope fundraiser drive and barbecue $54,000 raised in one day. Thanks to your generosity, we raised $18,200 from today's barbecue fundraiser.
The community donated more than $12,000 and 11,381 pounds of food.
Nearly 10,000 pounds of food was donated, along with more than $6,600 in cash. In all, 225 fans were donated, along with more than $6,500 to buy more fans. In all, more than $15,000 was raised for the Alzheimer's Disease Association.
Got to give blood, got to donate.
Houchin Blood Bank parked 2 mobile units outside the KGET studios for the community-wide blood drive.
The total raised today was $141,000. So a big thank you to each and every one of you who gave in the spirit of the Golden Empire.
The shooting happened at about 12:30 this morning. 2 suspects were shot and killed at the scene. It is unclear who initiated the gunfire.
And the department still won't say how a traffic stop turned deadly.
What police are saying is 2 men were killed by officers, and a handgun belonging to the dead men was found at the scene this morning. But police aren't saying why they pulled the men over into the Sheridan's East parking lot just after midnight, or how an initial approach to the men's car turned into a deadly shooting.
I'm telling you, it sounded like the OK Corral. It was like bam, 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 and it was just a steady stream of gunshots.
Was a man who was shot to death by Bakersfield police at the 4 Point Sheraton acting as an informant and helping lead officers to an armed parolee? It's just one of several unanswered questions raised tonight by the family of Jorge Ramirez Jr.
If the police put my son there, I wanted to come forward and let us know that that's what happened.
It has been 16 days now since Bakersfield police shot and killed 2 men in the parking lot of the 4 Point Sheraton Hotel. Police still refuse to answer key questions about those killings. Those 32 unanswered questions are still on our website at KGET.com.
We want to update you on a story we continue to follow here from our newsroom. The BPD shooting and killing 2 men in the parking lot of the 4 Point Sheraton Hotel back in September. Police not answering a lot of questions, saying that it was still under investigation. Here's what we know. Officers shot and killed Jorge Ramirez Jr. and Justin Brian Harger. Harger was wanted for an assault with a deadly weapon, and officers say he was the one who pulled the gun on officers early that morning on September 17th. Ramirez's family is now asking whether Ramirez was a police informant who was leading officers to Harger through a deal that was brokered with the department. BPD Chief Greg Williamson, our guest in studio this morning. Chief, good morning to you.
Good morning. I don't know if I can get through all 32 here, but we'll do our best.
I know there's a lot of questions here, but let's start off first with one of the most pressing questions. Was Jorge Ramirez Jr. a police informant, and was he acting in any capacity for the department that early morning?
Mr. Ramirez did contact an officer of the Bakersfield Police Department and provide information as to Mr. Harger's whereabouts and where he would be on that evening.
So, Chief, break down for me, how does this work? If a person is an informant, and actually let me walk back, was he working in the capacity as of an informant, leading officers to the 4 Point Sheraton that night to Harger?
He was. We had several correspondence with him. The officer who was speaking with him on the telephone passed this information on to the sergeant of the Special Enforcement Unit. They then rallied to make a plan. They exchanged gunfire for at least a minute or so before other officers were able to arrive.
So, Chief, how was Jorge Ramirez then killed? If he, as we understand, was not armed, was he shot accidentally, or did he make some kind of movement toward officers? Why was he shot?
Well, I think the problematic issue in this case is that Jorge Ramirez placed himself in this position. Officer Harger moved to the front of the car, and it's our understanding that Mr. Ramirez quite possibly moved to that area as well. We were responding to the flash and sound of gunfire and returning fire at the same time.
Was there a failure on the department's behalf? Were some of the officers who were pulling over unaware that there was an informant in the car? Was that not communicated perhaps from the Special Enforcement Unit or from detectives?
Well, I think it was communicated. I think the intricacies are we didn't know if that was the right car. We didn't know that Harger was going to be wearing a wig, and obviously Mr. Ramirez is bald as well.
Will there be any changes with the program that you guys have with informants in the department as a result of this?
Well, there's numerous levels of informants. This individual was not a reliable informant. He was untested. He had worked on a separate case that never came to fruition. But we do give individuals who want to try to become informants with the police department the opportunity to show that they can be reliable.
This is the third honor flight I've had the privilege to go on. While each trip is special, each one is different. And this time, there were quite a few unexpected surprises, even for the organizers. If you want to know how this honor flight trip went, look at our veterans' faces, smiling returning home, others overwhelmed with joy. The trip ended just like it began. A loud and proud crowd in Baltimore waiting for our vets on the other side of a water salute.
Wow, it's impressive. Thank you. Good to have you.
In the crowd of grateful welcomers, Major Deneen Hutton, deployed in Kuwait, just got home and is at a loss that our guys and gals happened to cross her path.
These guys, they saw horrible things and lost so much.
Those losses were remembered touring D.C. The Korean War veterans laid flowers at their memorial, and at the Vietnam Memorial, Gold Star mothers just happened to gather for Gold Star Mother's Day. The women in white, who know the sacrifice of war, showed their gratitude.
Thank you for your service.
I'm so glad people care.
Everybody come in close here. I want you to get in close by the desk.
Congressman Kevin McCarthy opened up the Capitol building on a Sunday for a private tour and photo ops.
Now on 3. 1, 2, 3, and perfect. Thank you, guys.
In the rotunda.
One more time.
And again on the Capitol's balcony.
This is probably one of the most exciting things I've ever done. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the trip. I've never been so impressed in my 94 years. So I'm happy to be, I'm overwhelmed, you might say, I guess.
And the feelings flowed again as the World War II veterans finally set foot on their memorial.
Thank you so much, sir. We sincerely appreciate it.
And they shake their hand out, thanking us for what we accomplished once upon a time. That's satisfying after all of these years. It's a tiring trip, but it sure makes you feel good. Yeah.
It's unreal, just beyond belief.
It's a dream come true. I didn't think I'd ever set foot on this beautiful monument. It's unbelievable. It just blows my mind.
Unexpected emotions and even more unexpected surprises at the Navy Memorial, where Admiral Scott Sanders was preparing for his retirement ceremony, but stopped everything at the sight of our vets.
My dad's no longer with us, but here's with us. You all mean so much to me. Every one of you.
A coincidence or possibly something more divine and meant to be, lined up like these veterans did for our country all of those years ago. For a much-deserved final salute on the last leg home, letters from home, relatives, friends, and even complete strangers, all saying thanks.
You are the reason that we are all able to live the life that we have today.
Words these men and women waited some 70 years to hear. A rush of joy. For some, too much all at once. But they left knowing.
I guess. Okay, it's good.
An 87-year-old woman has died after collapsing at one of Bakersfield's most prestigious senior living communities.
87-year-old Lorraine Bayless collapsed in the dining room on Tuesday, but the staff didn't perform CPR. In the 7-minute call, you hear Tracy Halverson, the dispatcher, repeatedly plead with the Glenwood Gardens nurse to start CPR. The nurse repeatedly refuses, even when Halverson tells her the patient will die without help.
Fire department, what's the address for emergency, please?
Yes, we need someone out at Glenwood Gardens as soon as possible. There's a lady that looks like she fainted or had a heart problem.
What is the address?
It's 11:07 Tuesday morning. 87-year-old Lorraine Bayless has collapsed in the dining room at Glenwood Gardens.
We need to get CPR started. That's not enough, okay? Yeah, we can't do CPR at this time. Okay, then hand the phone to the passerby. If you can't do it, I need to hand it to the passerby. I'll have her do it. Or if you've got any citizens there, I'll have them. No. Anybody there can do CPR. Give them the phone, please. I understand if your facility is not willing to do that, give the phone to that passerby, that stranger that has it sent. This woman's not breathing enough. She's going to die if we don't get this started. Do you understand?
I understand.
Okay.
I am a nurse, but I cannot have our other senior citizens who don't know CPR.
I will instruct them
We're in a dining room.
I will instruct them. Is there anyone there who's willing? Okay. I don't understand why you're not willing to help this patient.
I am.
Okay, great. Then I'll walk you through it all. EMS takes the liability for this, Colleen. I'm happy to help you. Okay, this is EMS protocol. Okay.
Yeah, right away. I don't know where he is, but he's yelling at me and saying that we have to have one of our other residents perform CPR and feel in stress, and I'm not going to do that and make that call.
Colleen, is there anybody that works there that's willing to do it?
We can't.
Are we just going to wait? We're going to let this lady die?
Well, that's why we're calling 911.
We can't wait. She can't wait right now. She is stopping breathing. She can't wait for them to get there. A little more than 5 minutes into the call, Bayless remains untouched, barely breathing on the dining room floor.
He's saying we don't, so you can talk to my boss, and I'm...
Okay.
I don't know...
They're refusing CPR. They're going to let her die. By the facility, yeah.
When will the fire department be here? When will the...
They're coming as quick. They've been on the way all this time, but we can't wait. This lady's going to die.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then, if you get anybody, any stranger that happens to walk by that's willing to help, if I understand if your boss is telling you can't do it.
Yeah.
But if there's any, as a human being, I don't, is there anybody that's willing to help this lady and not let her die?
Not at this time.
17's Kiyoshi Tomono has a look at why no autopsy was performed in this case.
87-year-old Lorraine Bayless died from a massive stroke 1 week ago at Glenwood Gardens as a nurse sat beside her and refused to perform CPR. For the second time in as many weeks, a local senior living facility and its CPR policy are under the magnifying glass following the death of a patient.
I have a patient who's a 76-year-old male. He's unresponsive.
Okay, and is he in a room number, or where's he at exactly? I've already got help on the way. And you said, and who's with the patient right now?
We have Autumn, Eliane, and other staff.
Okay, so Autumn with patient with CPR in progress.
Yes, it's in progress.
Just as firefighters arrived at the facility, a second call came in to the 911 dispatcher.
Well, this is 350 Callaway. This is Diana Redmond at Glenwood Gardens Studios. We called a 911 call for somebody with no pulse, no blood pressure. The man has a pulse and a blood pressure now. His doctor is with him.
Okay, is this a 76-year-old male?
Yes.
Yeah, we just arrived on scene.
Okay, well, the doctor said call and cancel, and it's like, okay.
All right.
When firefighters arrived at the man's room, they say they witnessed something entirely different. The man was not alive or breathing. He was clinically dead, and no one was providing CPR. In its report, the engine company notes the information provided to emergency responders is in direct conflict with the information presented both verbally and in writing from the doctors and nurses on scene.
One former firefighter tells us Glenwood Gardens staffers take it to the extreme, refusing to lift a finger even in cases when a resident simply needs help sitting up in a chair. 17's Kiyoshi Tomono tonight shows you why critics say it's a drain on public resources paid for by you, the taxpayer.
She's not hurt. She just slipped.
When patients at Glenwood Gardens lose their balance and trip,
Just slipped. She just needs assistance. She's a little bit bigger woman, so it's hard to
or simply slump down in a chair.
Stated that he fell and he needed help up. We did contact the front desk, but they stated that they didn't have any staff to help him up.
Staffers at Glenwood Gardens Senior Living Facility don't pick the person up, they pick up the phone.
We'd go over there and, many times there'd be 2 or 3 staff members standing around the person when we'd get there. And, we'd pick them up, put them back in their wheelchair, put them back in the bed, put them back on the toilet, wherever they were, when they fell down.
Retired Bakersfield firefighter Alan Newman reached the rank of captain. He served the city for 38 years.
I had words occasionally with some of the management. you know, why do you guys not do that? And then the answer I kept getting was liability.
That appears to me a misuse of 911 if you're not even going to do any preliminary assessment. I think that would be a waste of community resources.
So we crunched the numbers, requesting a month's worth of calls to the fire stations that serve 4 different senior living facilities. We wanted to know how much time firefighters were spending at those facilities and why they were being called. Glenwood Gardens is covered by Fire Station 15 off Buena Vista Road. In a 30-day span, firefighters were called to Glenwood Gardens 38 times. That's nearly 30% of all calls that Fire Station 15 received during the time frame. Firefighters responded to a significant number of people who had fallen and may have been injured, so they were taken to the hospital. But there were a significant number of calls like this.
He said he was injured?
He didn't say he was hurt.
Okay. You said the front desk has been notified?
They were notified that he fell. We'll call them back to let them know that you're on your way.
Battalion Chief Anthony Galageza is a spokesman for the Bakersfield City Fire Department.
These people fall down, we have to assist them up due to the potential. There's spinal injury potentials, there's neck potentials, there's skull fracture potentials that we just don't know.
The facility sent us a statement saying staff members are instructed to always call emergency personnel when someone falls and can't get up on their own out of an abundance of caution to ensure the individual has not sustained head trauma, a fracture, or other serious injuries of which the resident may not be aware.
I mean, if the person falls down the stairs, you should call 911. If they just need help getting out of bed, then the fire department should charge for having to come out and do their work. You know, that's how I would break it down.
A Glenwood Gardens spokeswoman sent us this message saying for individuals who are older, even a simple fall can result in critical injury. Accepted medical best practice for seniors is medical evaluation before they are moved. It's also important to note that seniors do pay taxes. Accordingly, they have a right to expect the services from their community that their tax dollars fund.
I did expect that they would have helped them get up if they did fall. I would not have thought of them that the only solution to that would be a phone call to 911. I think it's preposterous.
The policy of Glenwood Gardens is that no one, not residents, not visitors, not even the staff nurse, is allowed to give CPR in an emergency. Now, a local lawmaker has introduced a bill to outlaw policies that create that kind of life and death conflict.
It touched not only my heart, but everybody in my community.
Bakersfield Assemblyman Rudy Salas thinks Glenwood's policy is a heartless policy. He's introduced a bill in the legislature that would prohibit nursing and retirement homes from instituting non-assistance medical care policies.
Well, Governor Jerry Brown signed a bill that prohibits companies from adopting policies banning employees from performing CPR and other medical services in an emergency. The bill, AB 633, was brought by Assemblyman Rudy Salas in response to an incident at Glenwood Gardens in Bakersfield last February.
A 33-year-old Bakersfield man died in sheriff's custody this morning after an 8-minute fight with deputies in front of Kern Medical Center. Deputies said the man, David Silva, was immediately combative and fought to avoid arrest. But that account is disputed by eyewitnesses who say they videotaped the confrontation and then fought all day to keep the sheriff's department from taking their tape.
The suspect continued to resist the deputies and fight with the deputies.
Silva died at Kern Medical Center shortly after he was taken into custody around 12:40 this morning. But there's another side to this story. Here in Southwest Bakersfield, detectives knocked on the door of Melissa Cuellar around 2 o'clock this morning seeking 2 cell phones. They didn't just witness what happened with Silva, they captured it on video.
The first phone that was seized, they basically told the individual, you can do it the easy way or you can do it the hard way.
Deputies eventually obtained a search warrant and left with both phones.
The Sheriff's Department refused to answer any questions today. The department seized what eyewitnesses say was a videotape of the confrontation. Today, the Sheriff's Department released the 911 call from the morning Silva died.
I'm standing right here on the corner of Flower and Palm right now, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sheriffs. The guy was laying on the floor, and 8 sheriffs ran up and started beating him up with sticks. The man is dead, laying right here, right now. Okay. And they're trying to survive him. I got it all on video camera, and I'm sending it to the news. These cops have no reason to do this to this man. The man was not doing nothing. I got from when they first pulled up on him to the end.
Sheriff's Department doesn't have anything to hide. Why aren't we being shown these videos?
Don't jump to conclusions. We need to look at what the coroner's autopsy shows, cause of death. There's a lot of things in this investigation that we have to do to be fair to all sides.
We want to make sure that those videos are not destroyed.
I've never been dishonest with this public, and I'm not going to start now. I don't hide things. I don't change evidence. We want to know what's on that tape, just like everybody else.
For our top story, Kern County Sheriff Donnie Youngblood has called in the FBI to investigate the in-custody death of David Silva. Katie?
Well, Tammy, Bakersfield police say they were asked to analyze 2 cell phones last Friday. The sheriff's department says BPD determined one of the cell phones had no video of the incident.
I started videotaping right away, and Paco, he started videotaping also. And they were hurting him really, really bad. His screams, his cries were so ugly.
And I mean, it clearly shows from the beginning to the end, and, a bunch of officers beating, David Silva, him being hogtied, him yelling.
Eyewitnesses say they smell a cover-up in the disappearance of cell phone video that they say shows the beating and death of a man in sheriff's custody last week.
Whether she didn't take a copy or didn't take a video and just was saying that, or whether something was removed, I really, really think we have to find out.
Sheriff's detectives had the phones for about a week before the phones were shipped to the FBI in Sacramento. Spokesman Ray Pruitt says the phones were analyzed and sent back in less than 12 hours.
Kelsey? Tammy, people are trickling in here to the mortuary behind me on Panama Lane to say their final goodbyes to David Silva. His controversial death has received national attention.
They say that there's better video out there that's now not accessible. What's the story with that?
The confiscated cell phone videos have people talking across the country.
Sheriff Donnie Youngblood said today that Silva died of hypertensive heart disease, and a toxicology report shows that Silva had alcohol and drugs in his system. Youngblood says heart problems led to Silva's death, not baton strikes.
The general public that I've been in contact with in the last 2 weeks did what I asked them to do. They took a wait-and-see attitude.
The newly formed Kern Unity Coalition says Kern County authorities have a history of using excessive force, something they say needs to stop in order for law enforcement to regain the trust of citizens.
When I've got your back means I will stand there and let you beat a man to death and not say anything. Now you've gone over the line past loyalty and into felony.
Jim, videographer Grant Simpson and I traveled to Williston, North Dakota just a couple of months ago. It's a small town making it big because of the oil found in a shale rock formation. A treasure chest, experts say, is also here in the Central Valley, just waiting to be unlocked.
I'll tell you what, if we were downtown LA, we'd have quite a place here. That's for sure.
Fred Evans has been a rancher and farmer all his life in western North Dakota.
And we just enjoy a little bit of God's creation to be able to take care of here.
It's his dream job, but for decades he lived on credit. Until 3 years ago, life got a bit easier. Dozens of oil wells
we lost track.
Were drilled on his land, making him what the New York Times calls the richest man in Montreal County.
We're excited about what's happened and the opportunities we have to be right here in the middle of it.
Evans Farm sits on top of the Bakken Shale. Experts have known for decades it's a huge oil resource, but no one knew how to get the oil locked in the shale rocks.
To me, the geologists were just like a blind dog in a meat shop. They knew it was there, they could smell it, but they just couldn't get their teeth in it.
For years, explorer after explorer tried to unlock the Bakken's potential, including some investors from California.
In the 70s and 80s, my company drilled the Bakken Shale, and we walked away from it because it was uneconomic.
Decades later, Dave Kilpatrick would kick himself for the missed opportunity because in 2005, industry cracked the code on the Bakken.
It's made up of layers that are maybe a foot thick, and each one of them will frack differently.
We're putting an awful lot of science into it. We have engineers and scientists actually all over the world working on this project.
Industry geologists have been exploring this resource play only for the last 3 years, taking core samples from the shale.
The oil is trapped within this rock.
So saturated, you can smell it.
It does have a lot of oil in it, but what we don't know is, will it move?
Which is what several companies are testing right now with an undisclosed amount of expensive confidential wells.
I've seen wells drilled in the Monterey Shale in the valley, and literally there's so much oil in the Monterey, it's pushing oil out, it's coming out on the pits, the drilling pits, and you're seeing oil flowing out of the well while you're drilling, and you're thinking, this is amazing, we're going to have a killer well. And then you get the well cased, you put it on production, and it's not enough production to be economic.
Meaning if a $10 million Monterey well doesn't produce at least 200 to 300 barrels a day, 20 to 30 times an average California well, there's no profit.
And that's probably the key thing, is tying the economics of the project to the engineering and science, and how are we able to make enough oil rate to be economic.
We're very early in it, so I just think the jury is out.
And the entire valley is waiting for a verdict to see if the Monterey Shale is the state's next biggest employer or California's pipe dream.
A lot of technologies, still has to be applied to the Monterey to get it out, but don't give up on it. It's too big a resource.
And if you do have questions about this story, I will be on the KGET Facebook page to answer questions for the next hour. And then tomorrow night, we take you once again to North Dakota. But this time, we explore the growing pains of the oil boom, including an increase in crime, lack of housing, overwhelmed schools, and all of that could be coming your way. I'm Katie Roosh, 17 News.
We have new information regarding the PG&E power plant implosion that sent debris raining down on spectators, wounding 5 onlookers, with one man facing horrific leg injuries. You'll hear the dramatic 911 call. And the distance from destruction. We examine the safety zone set for spectators and if that perimeter was within guidelines. Plus, we want to know what you think about Saturday's early morning implosion and who may have put onlookers in harm's way. This is 17 News at 5.
And good evening to you. Thank you for joining us for 17 News at 5. I'm Jim Scott.
I'm Tammy Melchak. We begin with team coverage on the PG&E power plant implosion that seriously injured a Bakersfield man. Here's what we know tonight. 43-year-old Jerry Wood was the man seriously wounded by shrapnel from the power plant implosion. We spoke with his daughter today, and we'll hear from her coming up.
Also, 17's Paul Harris has the dramatic 911 tape as calls for help began coming into the emergency call center in Bakersfield. But first, we join 17's Kelsey Thomas as state investigators look into what went wrong. We are hearing from one demolition expert who says the safety zone wasn't large enough. Kelsey.
Jim, when you're knocking down a still building, pieces will shoot out much farther than a regular demolition, which is what happened Saturday when 5 spectators were injured in the crowd.
3, 2, 1, hit it!
At the PG&E power plant, the implosion Saturday sent shrapnel flying through the air into a crowd of spectators.
It's actually, a real tragedy, and it shouldn't have happened.
Herb Duane, an international demolition consultant, has overseen hundreds of projects over the last 50 years.
The safety zone wasn't long enough.
A 1,000-foot safety zone was set up for the implosion.
The safe zone should have been somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 feet because steel intends to go farther and have more projectiles going out than when you're imploding a concrete building.
When a large structure made up of steel implodes, the nuts and bolts pop off like bullets. Jerry Wood, who was seriously injured in the Lowe's parking lot, was standing about 1,050 feet from the blast.
But also you have to investigate how was the building prepared. I don't know if they put too much dynamite in the building and didn't do enough preparation cutting the steel.
The plan was to bring the buildings down, and they're down, but clearly I don't think anyone would call that as planned.
Cal OSHA is investigating to determine if there are any violations of state and health regulations.
That will include a very thorough review of what occurred. It will include interview with the employer. Alpha Explosives out of Lincoln, California was hired to handle the demolition.
We called Alpha Explosives, but no one was available for comment. A quick check with OSHA shows the company had no violations in the past 5 years. Cal OSHA has 6 months to complete its investigation. Now, you saw in the video the 2 towers collapsed to the side. Was that the plan? We'll have more on that coming up at 6. Reporting in Northwest Bakersfield, Kelsey Thomas, 17 News.
17 News today obtained a copy of the 911 call made by Laura Wood. She is the wife of Jerry Wood. 17's Paul Harris has listened to that call and is live now at Lowe's in Northwest Bakersfield to tell us more about it. Paul, pretty compelling, pretty graphic phone call, this one, huh?
Yeah, that's right, Jim. I'm standing at the spot where debris ripped through the fence right here, injuring Jerry Wood. His wife then made a frantic call to 911. And we want to warn you, what you're about to hear may be disturbing.
Fire department. Fire department, what's the address of your emergency?
We're across in the Lowe's parking lot, across the street from the buildings that were imploded.
Okay, is anybody injured?
My husband's legs have been blown off.
Confusion and terror. As Laura Wood calls 911 trying to get help for her husband. The 911 operator mishears and refers to Laura as Joan as she assesses the situation.
Are both his legs gone?
They're barely hanging on.
Okay, stay calm, okay? I've got help on the way, okay?
As Wood waits for a medical team to arrive, police are assisting her husband, trying to control the bleeding.
There is a lot of blood.
Okay, is he completely alert, Joan?
Are you with me?
Is he alert, yes or no?
Yeah.
Joan, is he alert?
Honey, he's just in a lot of pain.
The operator then asks the gruesome but necessary question of whether they have all of Jerry's body parts.
Have the parts been found?
Yes.
Okay.
They're still attached.
They're still attached, okay.
A medical team arrives as they prepare Jerry to be loaded into the ambulance. The 911 operator offers one last word of encouragement to Laura.
Listen, you did a good job. Good luck to your family. Okay. All right, bye-bye.
Now, we posted the entire 911 call to our website, kget.com, if you'd like to go there and listen to it. Live in Northwest Bakersfield, Paul Harris, 17 News.
And for the first time tonight, we are hearing from the victim's family, who says, contrary to initial reports, Jerry Wood has both of his legs. 17's Katie Roosh joins us now with the words from his family. Katie.
Tammy, the Woods say they're relieved their father is alive. And right now they say they just want to express their gratitude for the community's support. We spoke with Jerry Wood's daughter outside their family home today. Brianna Wood said her father is at Community Regional Medical Center in Fresno. She says Jerry Wood is scheduled to have multiple surgeries tomorrow, not for an amputation, however.
Thankful, I guess, blessed. I don't know, I'm blessed that he's here. He has both of his legs. All of his toes, 10 toes.
Brianna Wood didn't want to say any more than that, waiting until she heard more about her father. But she did want to thank all of those people sending their thoughts and prayers, like her neighbor was.
My prayers are with the family. They're a wonderful family, and I pray for his total recovery, and I pray even that he does not have to have the amputation.
Jerry Wood's wife expressed thoughts of hope as well. She posted their wedding photo on Facebook saying, "I thank you, God, for another day that I can kiss this man, the love of my life." Brianna Wood did not say when her father would be able to return home from the hospital. She says right now doctors are focusing on saving his legs. I'm Katie Roosh, 17 News.
Thank you, Katie. So who could face liability in this case? Bakersfield civil attorney Daniel Rodriguez appeared on 17 News Sunrise this morning to talk about who's to blame. 17's Maddie Jansen has more now on what he had to say.
So who is liable for what went wrong at Saturday's demolition? Is it PG&E and the demolition crew who carried out the implosion? What about law enforcement or the spectators themselves who came out to watch despite being encouraged to avoid the area? Here's what Attorney Daniel Rodriguez told 17's Kiyoshi Tomono this morning on 17 News at Sunrise.
Well, this is an easy one. It's the demolition company. They had the responsibility of figuring out what was a safe zone. Safe zone means where people are going to be safe. They're not going to be injured. So when the demolition company decided to bring down this building in a certain way, they had to take two things into account. One was chemistry, the other was physics. Chemistry had to do with the type of explosives and the type of material they were going to blow down, whether it would be cement or steel. And the other thing was physics. How far was the shrapnel or the metal going to fly? And they obviously didn't get it right.
PG&E released a statement saying, quote, "Our thoughts and prayers are with those who were injured during the demolition. Safety of the public and the employees is our first priority at all times, and we're deeply saddened that at least one individual suffered serious injuries. We will work closely with all investigating agencies and the third-party contractors who managed and carried out the demolition as they work to identify the cause of this accident." Both PG&E and the company hired to do the implosion are conducting investigations. In the newsroom, I'm Maddie Jansen, 17 News.
And that is the subject of tonight's 17 Interactive Feedback Poll. Tonight we're asking you, do you think PG&E should share some of the blame for spectator injuries? Call or text us at 661-888-4617. Press 1 for yes, you think PG&E should share some of the blame. 2 if not. You can also text, tweet, email, or Facebook your comments to us. Once again, our interactive feedback phone line is 888-4617. And we'll air some of your comments, and we'll have the first numbers for you coming up at 5:30.
Well, besides our cameras, hundreds of others captured their own images of the demolition on their cell phones or by home video. 7 News' Rochelle Murcia joins us now with all angles caught on camera. Rochelle.
Well, Tammy, you can almost get a full 360-degree view of the implosion and the aftermath after watching them all. Some catch the cheers of the plant coming down, others the fear and calls for help. What can be clearly seen in our video, all sizes of debris blasting off the building toward crowds.
She got hit. Come on. 4, 3,
was not so visible from the ignition site.
hit it!
Or to the hundreds, if not thousands of people safely lining Rosedale Highway.
That was awesome!
Cheering at the plant coming down, unaware of the chaos raining down in the southwest corner of the Lowe's parking lot.
I wonder what they're doing on the fire department.
This cell phone video shows the blast, then flying debris. And Doug Porter was right next to a car hit by a projectile and possibly grazed himself.
Dude, I freaking felt something like sting my leg.
And viewers sent us these photos. A dented BPD car, a piece of shrapnel found in the parking lot, and a truck, its metal torn from being hit. On the backside of the building from Brimhall, our cameras catch another view of chunks flying off of the plant toward people like Bobby Holland.
And pieces flew all the way over to here.
Seconds later, people nearby call out for help. Dashcam video shows police stopping our news crew as they taped off the area and paramedics went to work, caring for those there just to witness who wound up wounded.
We were in direct line of the blast, and it should have been blocked off completely. We should not have been allowed to stand where we were.
And this story is a good reminder. If you have video you'd like to share or anytime news breaks, you can email it to us at 17news@kget.com. I'm Rochelle Murcia, 17 News.
Wow. All right. Still to come here on 17 News at 5. On high alert, 19 diplomatic posts closed tonight because of a terror threat, and the head of al-Qaeda is calling on his followers to take action. We'll have the latest on the threat coming up. Plus this.
She was able to place her hand on one of the officer's firearms and actually fire the firearm while it was in the holster.
A bystander is wounded by a police officer's bullet after another woman struggles with the officer. That story new at 5:30.
And temperatures not quite as warm today, 94 degrees currently, and we're going to get even cooler. That's next in Pinpoint Weather.
All right, here's something I haven't had a chance to say in a long time. Cooler trend on the way.
It's amazing. As we're heading into, of course, still the beginning of August, normally we would still see triple digits, but that is not going to be the case in that 7-day forecast. In fact, we have a cool down on the way, and we'll show you that in a second. 94 degrees currently, the dew point's at 44, humidity at 17%. Both of these values are low. Winds are out of the west-northwest then at about 10, and the pressure's at 29.84. And let's take a look at these readings. Made up to 96 this afternoon, and we're already on our way down. Looking at 97 still in Wasco, 98 in Buttonwillow, but 94 from Delano to Shafter, 82 in Tehachapi, 92 in Lake Isabella, 93 in Mojave. Warm start to the work week, and as we head throughout the week, we have a pattern change on the way. An area of low pressure will be developing here offshore. That will bring much cooler air, and especially by Friday, when we expect to see temperatures around 90 degrees for a daytime high. So we'll definitely feel that cool down. Currently, we still have the marine layer, and it is really thick here along the coast. An onshore flow around an area of high pressure currently offshore is keeping them in sort of a June gloom pattern, even though, of course, it's August. So that will be a little bit of the contributing factor. Meanwhile, the monsoon flow well east of us, and we're going to continue to stay dry as we head into tonight. Skies will be mainly clear. Now, what's going to happen eventually is that you'll see here we have dry conditions up and down the west coast, but an area of low pressure will be developing here offshore as we head into the upcoming days. That will eventually swing on in, and it will continue to bring cooler air as we head into the second half of this work week and into the weekend. At this point, no rain here associated with that, but we may see some stray showers into the central Sierra as we head into midweek. So here's your forecast for Tuesday. Again, looking for the marine layer. Very cool along the coast and seasonably cool. Probably not great beach weather, to be honest with you, with temperatures only in the 60s. Inland, however, looking sunny and bright, obviously, with highs into the 90s. So if you are traveling, make sure that you make plans, of course, because it will be a little bit cooler at night, especially in Pismo, only 66 degrees, 80 in LA as we head into our Tuesday, upper 90s from Bakersfield into Fresno. Air quality moderate, and the AQI 77. Here's your forecast. I think you're going to like it. 98 degrees Tuesday, and then lower 90s Wednesday. After that, we have 90 degrees by Thursday now, and even into Friday and Saturday around 90. No need to leave town this upcoming weekend. It's not going to be so bad. Overnight lows in the 60s. In the mountains, 84 degrees tomorrow, 70s by Thursday, Friday into Saturday, and a cool down as well in the Kern River Valley, 92 tomorrow, followed by 80s into Wednesday and beyond.
Big 9-0.
I know.
Saturday?
I love it for August.
For Thursday.
Enjoy it.
Goodness.
We will. All right, thanks.
Great.
Still to come here on 17 News, U.S. officials talk about what has them concerned about possible terrorist attacks.
We obviously, as I said earlier, believe that this threat is significant and it is ongoing.
The latest information on why government officials shut down U.S. embassies and remain concerned.
Plus, Bakersfield police investigating a bank robbery in Northeast Bakersfield. We have details after the break.
Bakersfield police are investigating a bank robbery in Northeast Bakersfield that happened this afternoon. Officers say it happened around 3:15 at the Bank of the Sierra in the 2500 block of Mount Vernon Avenue. That's just north of Bernard Street. No word yet on a description of the robber. More details as we learn them coming up on 17 News.
Some U.S. embassies closed yesterday over fears of an al-Qaeda terrorist attack have been reopened today, but not many of them. And the White House says that threat is, quote, ongoing. Steve Handelsman has our report.
The U.S. Embassy in Bahrain remains closed. In Cairo, 19 posts in all, including the U.S. Embassy in Yemen, where the White House believes al-Qaeda may still be planning an August attack in Yemen or elsewhere.
We obviously, as I said earlier, believe that this threat is significant and it is ongoing.
Analysts say the al-Qaeda plot was complex,
but they had to involve numerous people in that kind of planning, and therefore that gave us multiple opportunities for detecting this and for corroborating that it was a serious plot.
A lawmaker who'd been briefed said the NSA intercepted coded communication and gave an example.
Well, the wedding is coming up this Sunday. The gifts are going to be enormous. We're going to get quite a reaction to the celebration afterwards.
Some critics of NSA surveillance are backing off.
I think we are relearning or reemphasizing that security absolutely is essential in our society.
Hundreds of al-Qaeda prisoners recently escaped in Iraq and Pakistan, adding to the worry.
After almost 12 years of fighting the ideology of al-Qaeda, that we have really not succeeded in breaking the back, and indeed the ideology seems to be gaining root again.
U.S. officials hope the apparent August plot has been so exposed and disrupted it will be canceled. But caution is the byword here, and so the indications are the embassy closings and the global alert to American travelers will continue for the rest of this month. At the White House, I'm Steve Handelsman, NBC News.
All right, and we'd like to pass along to you now. We're having a little bit of trouble with our interactive feedback line right now. You can still text or Facebook your comments to us. You just can't call right now, but 888-4617 is the number.
And once again, the question tonight is, should PG&E share some of the blame for the people that were injured during Saturday's implosion of the old power plant on Rosedale Highway? All right, now coming up, a store clerk shot in East Bakersfield, but not without fighting back. New at 5:30, we have more on the shooting investigation as police continue to look for the gunman.
And coming up next, a new study shows your kids learn more from your example than they do in school. That's coming up in your 17 Health Watch. In your 17 Health Watch tonight, kids may learn about the dangers of smoking in their school health class, but a child's household environment may be even more important. Shelby Lynn reports.
Children are more likely to smoke if their parent or older sibling smokes, according to a study published in the recent issue of Pediatrics. And parents who quit smoking aren't necessarily off the hook. The study analyzed more than 200 parents and 300 children. The youngsters were all 11 years and older. Researchers found adolescents had a greater risk of smoking even when their parents were characterized as light smokers or quit smoking later in life. And children were still at a higher risk to become smokers if their parents smoked and quit before their kids were even born. And if an older sibling smoked, the younger brother or sister was 6 times more likely to smoke compared to those with a non-smoking sibling. Study authors say no matter whether a parent smokes or not, they should immediately intervene if their child begins to smoke because the consequences may not only affect their health, but their siblings as well. I'm Shelby Lynn.
Coming up next and new at 5:30 tonight, authorities are warning women to be on high alert after several reports of a masked rapist breaking into homes. What you need to know, straight ahead. And a bystander wounded by a bullet from an officer's gun, but it wasn't the officer who fired that bullet. That story is new and next at 5:30.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at 5:30 in high definition.
New at 5:30, a bystander was wounded by a ricocheting bullet this morning as an officer struggled with a woman for control of his holstered gun.
Officers had been called to that South Bakersfield neighborhood just after 5 this morning. There had been a reported peace disturbance there. 17's Kiyoshi Tomono with a look now at how it all unfolded.
The investigation called for a close inspection this morning off of Hughes Lane and Arlana Street. Just 2 hours earlier, an officer was here struggling with a woman for control of his holstered gun. A bullet glanced off the pavement, and a fragment of that round struck a woman standing nearby.
She was able to place her hand on one of the officer's firearms and actually fire the firearm while it was in the holster.
The female witness was grazed in the left calf and taken to Kern Medical Center where she was treated.
Very minor. To my understanding, she's been released.
The commotion drew quite a crowd mid-morning as detectives and crime scene analysts converged. They took measurements, talked to witnesses, and snapped photos. Officers say even after handcuffing the woman, the struggle wasn't over yet.
The shattered glass is a result of the back window of one of the police cars getting kicked out.
By
the suspect.
The officer was carrying a department-issued Glock handgun, which has a built-in trigger safety to prevent it from accidentally going off. But officials say that safety won't prevent the gun from firing when someone intentionally pulls the trigger. In South Bakersfield, Kiyoshi Tomono, 17 News.
And just before news time tonight, we were informed by police that 3 people standing near the patrol car were hit by shrapnel, causing minor injuries. A store clerk has been taken to the hospital after he was shot on the job in East Bakersfield, but not without fighting back. According to the sheriff's department, they were called to the La Perla Market on Robinson Street after calls came in for shots fired. When deputies arrived on scene, they found a man, an employee at the market, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to the chest.
The information we have at this point is that the suspect entered the store, confronted the clerk. Suspect was armed with a handgun. Suspect shot at the clerk. We do have information that the clerk returned fire. Suspect fled the store on foot. As you can see behind me, it is a very active ongoing investigation, and with the assistance of the Bakersfield Police Department, we are currently looking for the suspect.
The victim was taken to a local hospital. His condition at this hour is not known. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Sheriff's Department at 861-3110.
A motorcycle rider is dead following a crash on Copus Road near Interstate 5. It happened this morning around 9:30. The Highway Patrol says the motorcycle rider tried to pass a semi-truck, not realizing the semi-driver was turning left into a business. The two collided, and 59-year-old James Dennis Ramos of Tehachapi died at the scene. Big rig driver was not hurt. The CHP is investigating whether speed was a factor.
Bakersfield police are asking for your help tonight in finding a man wanted for burglary and sexual battery. Police say yesterday morning around 3 o'clock, a victim was asleep in her home in the 800 block of East 4th Street when she woke up to find a man inappropriately touching her. He then ran out of her home and was seen driving away in an older green SUV similar to a Ford Explorer. He's described as an Hispanic man in his late 30s, approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall. Weighs about 150 pounds, black hair with a mustache, wearing a black tank top shirt and tan khaki shorts. Anyone with information on this incident is urged to contact police at 327-7111.
Investigators are still looking for a man they fear may be a serial rapist. There have been 2 attacks in 2 weeks within a 4-mile radius in northeast Bakersfield. Authorities believe the rapist may have been involved in 2 separate burglaries in March and May in the same apartment complex where the latest assault happened Thursday morning. In the latest attack, a man broke into an apartment Thursday in the 2900 block of Virginia Avenue near Oswell Street. Detectives say he forced his way in and tied up 4 people and sexually assaulted 2 of them. The attackers in both attacks share a similar description: a man with dark skin, about 6 feet tall with a medium build, in his 20s or 30s. And in both attacks, the man wore a ski mask. If you have any information, you're urged to call the police or sheriff's department. You can also remain anonymous and call the secret witness hotline, and that number is 322-4040.
17 court watch now, and a registered sex offender who police say cut off his ankle monitor and took off with a teenage girl appeared in court today. Police arrested 37-year-old John Gonzalez Friday morning. In court today, he entered a plea of not guilty. Police suspect Gonzalez had been in the company of a 15-year-old Bakersfield girl who was missing for nearly 2 weeks. She returned home last Tuesday. Gonzalez was booked on charge of committing lewd and lascivious acts with a child, failing to register as a sex offender, and drug possession. Police also arrested 43-year-old Concepcion Romero on charges that she helped harbor Gonzalez. She also appeared in court and entered a not guilty plea.
The man accused of killing 2 people while robbing a Bakersfield medical marijuana collective was back in court this afternoon. Aaron Burris faces 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Devin Daniels and Tony Sherman in what police say was a robbery gone wrong at First Reliable Medical Marijuana Collective. Last week, a judge postponed the arraignment until today, and again today, Burris's hearing was postponed for another 2 weeks. A Lake Isabella mother has been ruled competent to stand trial in the death of her daughter. 23-year-old Amanda Reese appeared in court this morning. She faces charges for the death of 1-year-old Sophia Lynn Taylor. Deputies arrested Reese in June. The little girl died back in January. Reese's boyfriend, 24-year-old Jared Ramirez, is charged with second-degree murder.
Recapping our top stories this hour. At the PG&E power plant, the implosion Saturday sent shrapnel flying through the air into a crowd of spectators. A 1,000-foot safety perimeter was set up for Saturday's implosion. Cal OSHA investigators are now looking into whether or not there were any violations of state and health regulations.
43-year-old Jerry Wood was critically injured during Saturday's demolition at the power plant. His family tells 17 News, contrary to initial reports, Wood has both of his legs, and the family's relieved their father is alive. Right now, they say they want to express gratitude for the community's support. His daughter, Brianna Wood, did not say when her father would be able to return home from the hospital in Fresno. She says right now doctors are focusing on not having to amputate his legs.
So who is liable for what went wrong at Saturday's demolition? Is it PG&E, the demolition crew who carried out the implosion? What about law enforcement or even the spectators themselves who came out to watch despite being encouraged to avoid the area? Civil Attorney Daniel Rodriguez says the demolition company is liable because they have the responsibility of figuring out what a safe zone should be.
And that is the subject of tonight's 17 interactive poll. We have been asking, does PG&E, in your opinion, share some of the blame for spectator injuries? Here's how about 150 of you are voting so far. 24% say yes, PG&E should shoulder some of the blame, and 76% say it should not. Here's a look now at some of your comments tonight. Janet writes, no, the company that did the demolition and the police who enforced it, in her opinion, should shoulder the blame. Here's a look at one of our text messages. It reads, why would it be their fault? PG&E's. Everyone was advised to stay away. And a tweet received says, no, people shouldn't have been there. Tina Croxton-Minton says, try all to blame. Vegas demolishes huge buildings all the time in the middle of town, and nobody ever gets hurt. And Maria Campbell says, somebody always wanting to blame somebody else. I'm sorry, people got hurt, but you take your lives into your own hands when you go someplace dangerous, when you are warned and told to stay away. A lot of different opinions tonight. What's yours? Give us a call or text. 888-4617 is back up and running. Press 1 if you think PG&E shares some of the blame for spectator injuries Saturday, and 2 if not. You can also text, tweet, email, or Facebook your comments.